Hello, everybody. My name is Angel Mannion. I am the program director of Opera Hack. I see a lot of familiar faces from the Opera Hack participant list, and this is great to see all of you. If you are unfamiliar with Opera Hack, just join us. Opera Hack is a program where we combine people from theater and technology to come together and solve problems. And you might ask how we do that. Basically, over the last year, we polled the industry to figure out 15 challenges that our industry is facing. Things like racial diversity, environmental sustainability, inefficiencies with the production, rehearsal, and audition processes. So things like inventory management and how we can improve subtitles, things like that. At the end of this event, we are going to give away $15,000 to three winning ideas, $5,000 each. And while this is all fine and great, we believe that this program will be successful if people continue to work together after this whole event is over, because we have no shortage of issues, right? Like coming out of this pandemic, industry probably isn't better off than where we were when we first started. So I think problems have only been magnified. So Opera Hack is really an opportunity for us to be vulnerable about the issues that we have so we can start taking action. And so I'm really excited to say that we have over 150 people participating in Opera Hack from around the world, people in Asia, in Europe, North America, so on and so forth. And one of our advisory panel members is Debi Wong, who I'm about to introduce, who's giving a presentation today. Debi Wong is the artistic director of Renaissance Opera. I totally in love with her at this point. She's great. You're going to love her too. She's incredible work in VR and in performance. Before I introduce Debi, though, I'm going to give it over to David Bennett, who is our general director, and talk a little bit more about his vision for Opera Hack and why it's really relevant to our industry right now.
Thanks, Angel. So as Angel mentioned, this is an innovation grant. This was the idea of Opera Hack came about as we applied for an innovation grant. We've done one already, and this is our second hack, and this was funded by Opera America. And so, when we began thinking about what we would want to propose as a project to be funded around the idea of innovation, we were really thinking about San Diego, like what made sense for San Diego. And San Diego is increasingly becoming a city where technology is sort of permeating the city more and more. A lot of technology companies are moving here, and also creative technology. So that sort of became our concept. And then also we wanted to make sure that whatever we were hoping to do as an innovation, we wanted to make sure it was replicable and that it could actually have a chance of having real impact on our industry. And I think this definitely does. And our first Opera Hack that we did was in person. And like many things that we're discovering during COVID, we've had to move to an online platform to do this out of necessity this year, but it's actually going to improve Opera Hack. I just know, because we have so many more people participating this year internationally, but the idea of actually focusing on technology, because we're going to be in an online presence, really puts this conversation like right to the forefront. And we had a little meeting this morning where we went over the challenges that Angel had mentioned, and they're just really terrific. And I think we're going to come up with some really wonderful ideas. So I'm very excited about it. And I just want to say that innovation is sort of becoming at the heart and center of everything we're trying to do at San Diego Opera. And we just finished, I'm sure most of you on the call know, but we just finished a response to the pandemic as producers by not just stopping, but finding a way to produce safely for a live audience with live performers by doing 2 drive-in concept operas. And the same thing, we did that out of necessity, but we have some learning that has come out of it that I think hopefully will find its way into the theater, because that's what happens. You take advantage of a crisis and you learn from it and you move forward. So I'm very excited about this, and I'm really looking forward to hearing Debi. I just want to go back and say that Angel and Debi, if we have any, we have some people that are probably not familiar with all the terminology. So if we say VR, we should probably talk about what that really is, and AR and haptics and 3D printing, and just explain what all those things are, because that's what is super exciting. So I'm going to step off and turn it over to Debi or Angel. What do you want to introduce her further?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So this is Debi Wong, artistic director of Renaissance Opera. Debbie, you want to talk about a little about what you do and your background and everything going on? And go ahead and go into your.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Angel, so much for inviting me. And thank you, David, so much for hosting me, and to San Diego Opera for coming up with this brilliant idea of Opera Hack and then inviting me to be a part of it. I'm so honored and so excited. I love, David, what you were saying just about innovation being at the heart of what you're doing at San Diego Opera. And this is something I feel very passionate about. I come from a background in classical vocal music and especially Baroque music. So I don't know if there are lots of Baroque opera fans here. I am very much a Baroque opera fan. But as I was studying Baroque music, I realized that I wanted to keep pushing these boundaries of what kinds of storytelling we can achieve with Baroque opera. And I was so inspired by just the birth of Western opera. So it sort of led me down this path of doing different performance experiments. And I started a PhD at the University of the Arts Helsinki, or Sibelius Academy, where I began with this spirit of innovation that David's speaking to, just testing out little ideas, ways that we could push the boundaries of classical music performance. And fast forward about 6 years after I started that degree, and I founded Renaissance Opera. We're located on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations, colonially known as Vancouver, British Columbia. And it's here where, much like San Diego, we have a little bit of a hotspot for virtual reality, augmented reality, video games. There's a lot of sort of this kind of collaboration and innovation going on. And I thought, why can't we bring opera into this tech sector, into the digital sector as well? Just because it's sort of rooted in these 400-year-old traditions, why can't we just also be rooted in the traditions of today? And with those sort of things in mind, we've started creating a virtual reality opera, which I'm going to talk to you about today. But we've also been doing audio dramas and building like virtual time capsules, commissioning sort of diverse video projects. So this area of experimentation is really exciting, and we are most excited about this Orpheus VR, which I will share with you now, if it's okay to start. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Orpheus VR to you, and the idea of creating opera in virtual worlds. And oh, David, you had mentioned that if we are using certain terminology, we should provide definitions and explain those things. And I'm really happy you said that, because I put in some just sort of like definition cards for some of the main terminology that I'll be using. So if I kind of zip past those too quickly, or if people would like to see those slides afterwards, I'm happy to share those with you all. So Orpheus VR is a new operatic experience in virtual reality that places a single audience member, which I will sometimes refer to as a user, at the center of a reimagined and interactive version of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth. We like to describe it as choose your own adventure meets epic opera. And the experience is currently in development for the Oculus Quest, which is a VR gaming headset. It's a standalone one, which means it's not connected to anything. And it looks pretty nerdy, but it's pretty fun once you're inside of it. And today we're going to just talk about this process and the tools that we've used to translate and propel this 400-year-old art form into the forefront of new and emergent media and storytelling. So whenever I start talking about Orpheus VR, I usually start with my 2-minute version of music history overview and the birth of Western opera. I saw a lot of hands go up for people who are fans of Baroque opera, so you're probably familiar with this idea of how we usually talk about music history, which is through the lens of specific composers and their works. But as I was sort of on my own creative journey, what really excited me and the sort of design thinking part of my brain is just why Western opera exists in the first place. And it essentially exists, according to my 2-minute history overview, Because 450 years ago in Florence, an interdisciplinary group of philosophers, poets, singer-songwriters, artists of all types, performers were gathering regularly to bemoan the current state of the arts and ideate on how they might reclaim dramatic texts and bring them to life in a way that would immerse their audiences and deeply affect their emotions. These were all inspired by ancient Greek theatrical practices, and Western opera very much emerged from this process of ideating, innovating, prototyping, all in the name of reconnecting with powerful modes of storytelling. So even though the intent was to reclaim the lost historical art of Greek drama, this process of reimagining or imagining what Greek drama might have looked and sounded like, then putting forward proposals for how it might be recreated, and then testing those proposals out, allowed for this unprecedented form of storytelling to emerge. It was a form that leveraged modern ideas and technologies to immerse audiences in epic stories. And that is essentially what we are trying to do with ORPHEUS VR. We are trying to explore ideas rooted in historical art forms and practices while leveraging modern technologies to open up these new forms of storytelling. So with those things in mind and that little brief, my version of history, there are three big questions that we are using to inspire and govern our process with this project. And the first one is, what would opera look and feel like if it were invented today? The second one is, what is essential to what we understand as Western opera, and how can technology innovate the artist and audience experience of those essentials? And the third, how do we bring these ideas to life? So in tackling this question, we brought together this very interdisciplinary group of artists, much sort of akin to the artists gathered in Florence 450 years ago. But this time we had 3D artists, animators, opera singers, directors, writers, singer-songwriters, composers, coders, developers, all coming together to reimagine the experience of opera. And we started what we call our ideation process, this process of coming up with ideas, by looking at what kinds of storytelling exist today that embody some of these early Baroque Western opera ideas of being completely immersed in a story world, and that bring together the visual, the textual, the musical to pack an emotional punch and evoke the sensation of just having your breath taken away. So we also talked about what kinds of storytelling exist and that are successful today that are also longer in form and unravel in multiple acts with complex plot lines, enormous story worlds, and are meant to be brought to life by robust imaginations and production resources. And this very much landed us in the realm of video games. So we spend a lot of time talking about the design and scale of video game narratives and what goes into the creation of these just massive story worlds. But we also spent a lot of time thinking about the audience experience and the interactivity that sets that genre apart from art forms like cinema and opera. And this is what led us into the realm of virtual reality storytelling. And here's my first info slide. So if you are brushing up on what virtual reality is, here is a fairly succinct definition. But as I've been touching on, one of the most powerful aspects of opera is the immersiveness of the music. And with virtual reality, we had this opportunity to combine musical immersion with the immersive visual environments. And this to me really resonated because it reminded me of all of these old sketches that I would see in my own music history lessons about the birth of Western opera, and the way they would design their sets and the way they were thinking about building their sets. So I have included this slide to just give you a hint of some of that. And what I love about looking at these things is just seeing the many, many layers that have gone into the set building, the scale of the sets. We can see like the sort of like, I'm going to call it the mortal realm because that's what we call it in Orpheus VR, but the mortal realm at the bottom, and the way that the sets are built and the way the visuals are built to really suck you into this world. And this world is clearly involving the mortal realm, it's involving the heavens, it's involving supernatural beings, humans, and when I look at these images and I think about the immersiveness of music and these visuals, I really do see the seeds of what we are doing today with virtual reality, or this entire booming immersive experience industry right now. And for me, when we talk about innovation, it is really that's where I love to live, and that's where I feel innovation lives. It's in connecting these dots, or finding these little seeds of ideas and things that keep us, that we can draw lines to our artistic predecessors, but then keep up with that process of coming up with the new ideas and ideating on top of these ideas that they've left behind for us. So as we were going through and talking about the immersiveness of or this idea of immersive from when Western Opera was born and what's available to us today, we also wanted to talk about what is absolutely essential to our understanding of Western opera. We didn't want to just do away with all of the conventions or do away with everything, and so we wanted to find this truly hybrid experience. So we had to ask ourselves, what is essential to how we understand and experience Western opera, and how can technology innovate the artist and audience experience of those essentials? So there were two main aspects of opera that we thought would be really exciting to explore within the framework of virtual reality storytelling. And the first is of course, the unique way that opera singers bring their characters to life, both physically and vocally. And for us, this meant using motion capture technology, which brings me to my next info slide. Yep. And motion capture technology means we are recording the full body and facial expressions of our opera singers, and then using that data to animate computer characters in our story world. So in combination with virtual reality, it means that you can experience opera singers in an entirely new way. You could be right beside one of our characters while they're singing. You could walk around them. You could be looking right at all of their facial expressions. You could kind of hear them from different places in the world. So it's an entirely different way for the audience to engage with our opera singers. And the way I like to describe it is real performers, real performances. Instead of costumes, they're wearing avatars. And the second aspect of opera that we wanted to expand on was the use of music and sound, and especially the way the audience experiences music and sound. So being able to move around your opera singers is part of that. And of course, I keep talking about how music is naturally immersive. And in virtual reality storytelling, I would absolutely argue that the immersive audio and the music that we have in there is just as important as the visuals to create this whole storytelling experience. But as I'm sure we all know and will agree on, what is really unique and beautiful about the operatic genre is that music is how integral music is to just driving and more importantly, directing the storytelling. So we wanted our audience to be able to experience that, and we wanted them to feel like their presence had meaning and impact inside the experience. And in a musically driven narrative form, this meant to us that the audience should be able to influence and affect the music in our world, which means they are also able to affect the story, the outcomes, and the order of the arias and plot that they will experience. So we introduced the element of interactive audio, and there's a little definition there for you too. And in our experience, what that means is that the music and orchestration that you hear will respond to the actions of the audience member, making the audience member a kind of co-creator in the whole experience as well. So those are the sort of big tools and ideas that we're working with. And then, of course, the next thing is, how do we bring these ideas to life? And I touched on my incredible team of artists that have worked on this project with me. And I will play a little video for you just to give you some of the behind the scenes footage and some of the graphics and visuals that you would experience in the headset. And you'll see how the virtual reality, that's a little bit hard to experience on a 2D screen, but you'll see what's inside there, and you'll also see how the motion capture has worked as well.
I know I should not have come. I know I have angered the fates. The fates be damned for keeping me from you. Do not tempt them, they will retaliate. My dreams we fought the fates and were free. The fates be damned for keeping you from me. In my dreams we fought the fates always retaliate. In my dreams we There is a song in the heart of the earth that echoes in our beings. It sings when you brush the branches of the willow tree.
I should have known you'd find me. We can't ever escape the fates. I know you guard Eurydice in this grove. Let me show you that our love is true.
Welcome to the mortal world. That is Orpheus here, searching for Eurydice who sleeps in the willow grove.
There is a song in the heart of the earth that echoes in our beings. It sings when you brush the branches of the willow tree. It rings out when the moonflower blows.
Together, they could move mountains, roil the sea, change the course of destiny. A power that belongs only to the fates.
Welcome to the mortal world. In this place, we are prophecy. We are fate. We balance the forces of life and death. Under our right hand, nature awakens. Under our left hand, nature sleeps. Such is our right. We are incarnations of destiny, and we have come here for a reason. Listen, that is Orpheus, searching for their love Eurydice, who sleeps in the willow grove, under our watchful eye.
so cool.
Thanks. That's just a little snippet of some of those things that I've been talking about. You could see the motion capture suits and how we're capturing the body and the face. And then, of course, you can see Orpheus. That was Orpheus. I will talk about the design in a second. But you can see how it then translates into our avatars. And we tried to give that side by side so you can see it in real time as well. So what I was going to do is just, you've seen a little bit of the tools and how that's all coming together. So I thought I would just talk to you a little bit about the design of characters, environment, about the composing of the music and the inspiration behind that, and also the sort of experience of performing and bringing those characters to life as opera singers who are trained to work in sort of proscenium stages. So the first is the characters and environment, and also which ties into our adaptation of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth. Our art director is Conrad Sly, so all of the artwork you see is created by him, and our concept artist is Dorothy Yang. So you'll see some of those concepts after as well. But in our version of Orpheus VR, in the Orpheus and Eurydice myth, we wanted to explore a few really fundamental things. We wanted to, I spoke to this sort of like massive, immense video game worlds. This is a little bit difficult in virtual reality because there's sort of technical challenges that come along with building really big worlds. But in our backstory, we have 3 realms of existence in Orpheus. We have the mortal realm, which is where all living beings dwell. We have the realm of the muses, which in a traditional mythology could be referred to as like the heavens where the gods are living. And then we have the realm of the demons, which could be akin to the underworld. And in our story, there is a constant power struggle between the 3 realms. And that power struggle is kept in check and in balance, as you've seen, by the fates. And in our experience, you get to play the role of one of the fates. And it is up to you to decide if you're going to keep the balance of the realms or if you're going to destroy it or tilt the power in a certain direction. With the overall theme being this questioning of how is power given to beings in our world, who holds power, who doesn't, and how do we disrupt power distribution in the worlds that we exist in. And so Orpheus and Eurydice play a part in this world because Orpheus comes from the realm of the muses and Eurydice comes from the realm of the demons. And the 2 fall in love, and them being together automatically is disrupting the balance of the realms. And as fate, you get to decide if you will let them continue their love affair and see what happens if they are allowed to stay together. But you are also told by your co-conspirator fates that if you let this happen, everything will go horribly wrong and the world will be destroyed. So this is the choice you have throughout the entire opera. Every step of the way, you get to choose between these sort of 2 dynamics, and based on your choice, you will be led down a different branching narrative. So to get started with creating the design, we quickly learned that designing for 3D worlds means you have to use 3D tools, even in a storyboarding phase. So even from the very get-go, we would start by drawing out our storyboards or making walls with Post-it notes, and quickly discovered that this didn't work. If we wanted to see how a story or a plot line situation would work, we would all line up in someone's living room and we would put chairs where trees are supposed to be, and we would have some people playing demons and other people playing Orpheus and Eurydice, and we would just decide how that would play out by actually improving it out in a living room. And then we also got our 3D artists to paint the storyboards for us. So these images that you're seeing here are early concepts of the worlds that we wanted to create, but you can actually stand in those worlds. If you're wearing a virtual reality headset, you can walk through them. And what is really cool about painting in 3D is that the artist has to do it in the headset. So he painted all of the rocks underneath his feet. He painted all of the tree branches above his head. Every single color you see in there is a brush stroke from our artist. When we were designing Orpheus and Eurydice, we also wanted to look at the gender stereotypes and the way that these characters are traditionally portrayed throughout mythology. And Eurydice, there are some new contemporary depictions of Eurydice, but she's often the damsel in distress. She often doesn't get as much to say in the operas that maybe not in Offenbach, that's a different one, but she's often very cast as, yeah, the damsel in distress, doesn't have so much to say. She gets rescued by Orpheus. And so we wanted to kind of empower her in a different way. So her being part demon, we decided meant that she has this power of using the natural forces in the earth world. This is where our video games side comes in. We imagine that she's kind of a kind of dryad. So she has the power to turn into a tree and to make the trees come to life and help her. And so you can see the designs of that pretty clearly. We've got tree bark on her like armor. We've got willow leaves as her hair, and you can see all the leaves coming up as her pants, and the blue moss on her shoulders. And this is just showing you the progression of design, starting with what our 3D artist started with, and then the final concepts by Dorothy Yang. Same thing with the character of Orpheus. We were really interested in designing this character because Orpheus in the operatic realm, as you probably all know, has many different depictions. Is sometimes played by a tenor, sometimes played by a soprano, sometimes played by a mezzo or a countertenor. It's this very interesting role in the canon of opera. And so we wanted to kind of play with that idea of gender and vocal fluidity and really bring out the musical affinity that Orpheus has. So we captured that with the idea of bird song. So you can see the feathers that are on Orpheus's shoulders and through their hair. And in the details of the clothing, this is where we've sort of brought in the idea of the lyre that Orpheus plays. There's, it's a little bit hard to see in these, but there's these very delicate lyre strings that are woven throughout the clothing. Again, when we work in 3D, we have to start working with 3D tools. So after the concepts were drawn up, our 3D artist has to sculpt a version of Eurydice and of Orpheus. And so he does this on the computer. But before he does that, both the singers, myself and my colleague Mireille Asselin, we have to kind of send photos of ourselves standing in awkward T-poses. And then our 3D artist just starts building models of our bodies and then shaping them to turn into these avatars, which is kind of cool. So this is the final, one of the final versions of Eurydice as a 3D character. And same thing with Orpheus. And I included this because you can see in this bottom part how each feather is placed on the model. And in a way, it just being able to see this process still reminds me of what we do in opera houses too, like the idea of building wigs or building costumes and making sure the costumes are measured perfectly to fit our actors. It's very much a similar process. We're just using computers. Designing the environment was a really interesting challenge as well, and also kind of akin to setting up an opera set as well, that we have to really know the boundaries that we're working in. We had to create like a full overview map so that we know how the audience can move through the path that we want them to move on. And one of the big challenges, of course, in a 360 world is that the audience can go wherever they want. And so we had to build lots of trees and rocks to keep them contained on their path. And this is where that idea of musically driven narrative comes from. We had to really think carefully about how are we using sound to direct them? How are we using sound to pull their attention or to startle them or keep them moving in a certain way or feeling a certain way? And so as you progress through the path that you see on this sort of overhead view, there's a very evocative soundscape and a musical sort of narrative that goes along with that as well. And finally, just some details that our artist has put in, the concept of the three fates and carrying the balance. You can see the fates on the bottom here and their power over the mortal realm. And you see these symbols throughout. And as the narrative progresses, you learn more and more about the backstory of the fates. And this influences your feelings about them and whether or not you do want to do what they're saying or you want to just disrupt the balance. This is just a concept of everything inside the headset so you can see what it actually looks like. But I also want to talk to you about the experience of being a performer as an avatar as well. And one of the characters, one of the singers that we were working with was Mireille Asselin. She's an incredible Canadian soprano. And she's performed on stages all over the world, including the Metropolitan Opera, the Canadian Opera Company. She's been everywhere. And so I was just absolutely honored when I asked her if she wanted to stand in an awkward bodysuit with little magnetic, shiny balls that were capturing every single body movement and a camera right up in her face so that we could turn her into this Eurydice avatar. And she was absolutely game and excited to try this out. And so we were really thrilled to be working with one of my favorite singers of all times. But as a reference point, here are some other depictions of Mireille playing Eurydice. We see her in the left on Against the Grain's recent Orpheus and Eurydice, the Gluck. And then we can see her on the right in the Boston Early Music Festival's version, Monteverdi version, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Monteverdi. So one of the big differences being a performer in this kind of experience is that we are taught to kind of be facing a certain way, and we're taught to use our body in a very specific way as if we're in this huge halls or bigger spaces. But as we were putting this together, we realized that we have to be thinking about our body language from a completely 360 view. And we have to be thinking about like every single detail of the face and also how we were interacting with each other, thinking about if an audience member were standing really close to us or if they were really far away, and being able to account for all of those variables that we just don't know, so that every time a person goes in, they can enjoy the experience. So the way that works, you saw in the video, is that we use motion capture to record the facial and body. And in the middle here, you can see what that actually looks like in the game system and in the computer. It's just these little data points for each character. And then they get put onto our avatars and then translated into the virtual reality world, which you can see on the right. And I will show you a little bit of the design evolution of Eurydice, and then you'll see Mireille performing as Eurydice in one of our trailers. So here it is.
Your song excites the earth and rock, and from my root-bound sleep I am
Welcome to the mortal world. We have been waiting for you. In this place, we are prophecy. We are fate. Spinning the future for all living things.
Orpheus, what have you done?
So I will tell you a little bit now in our last final minutes about the musical composition and the interactive audio. And our, I completely forgot to credit my incredible animator and director of motion capture, which is Neil Nair. And he is he's sort of an unsung hero. He's always we don't see we don't think about how much work goes into the animation and every single detail that he has to adjust behind the scenes just to make sure everything's moving smoothly and looks the way we want it to. So you're seeing the work of Neil in those videos as well. The music composition and interactive audio is created by Brian Topp. And I'm going to walk you through just a little bit how we have to think about musical composition when we're dealing with a 360 interactive dynamic composition opera and the challenges that come with that. The first thing is that, like most things in this project, we're trying to kind of keep throwing back to our roots. And we were really inspired by Monteverdi's version of Orfeo. I think I told you that I'm a big Baroque opera nerd, and this is one of my favorite operas for many, many reasons. But the declamatory style of music from that time, the harmonic language, it all feels so dramatic and very theatrical, as if you were just an actor speaking a text on stage. And so we wanted to pull some of those elements in the recitative and the harmonic language of Monteverdi's Orfeo. So what we did, you heard a little bit of one of Brian's pieces. So I'm going to play for you the reference piece. And this is Rosa del Ciel by Monteverdi. And it is sung by Orfeo to Eurydice to say, Rose of the heavens, have you ever seen a lover as so happy as me? And he's professing his love for Eurydice and how joyous he is in this moment. So I'm going to play this for you first.
Rosa del ciel, vita del mondo, e degna prole di lui che l'universo affrena. Sol che il tutto circondi e il tutto ammiri, dagli stellanti giri, dimmi, vedestu mai di me più liete fortunato amante? Tu ben fe-
So that's one of the more famous of Orpheus's songs and arias in Monteverdi's version of Orfeo. And you heard this musical excerpt in the concept art for Eurydice, but I'll play it for you one more time. You'll see what's actually part of what was in the headset in this version. And so what we did with this aria is we modeled it after the Monteverdi. We gave it to Eurydice to sing, and so she sings, and we imagine it as if she is singing back to Orpheus 400 years ago, and us like throwing back to Monteverdi with his Orpheus singing to us and us responding with our Eurydice. So here is Rose of the Heavens by Brian Topp.
Rose of the heavens, light of lights, your song excites the earth and rock, and from my root-bound sleep I am
So totally different, but I hope you can still sort of see the threads there and the connection points that we were kind of going after when we created that piece. I should have mentioned too that that's a 360 video, so it looks a little weird. And if you do have a VR headset, you can find it on our YouTube and go in and actually experience that scene as a 360 experience. So one of the ongoing challenges for our amazing composer is that, as the slide says, music exists in time. But when we give our audiences all the time in the world and all the agency in the world, it makes for difficult composing because we have to be able to sort of predict what they're going to do, but also have lots of buffers just in case they don't do what we think they're going to do. And it means kind of creating 3 different musical modules, I'll call them. The first is fixed music, and then we have free music, and then we have user-directed music. So in the experience, there's fixed music, and that's when you're in like something like a cut scene. There's the audience member or the user is not able to influence it. It just plays like a video. The audience member can still sort of move around and see it from different viewpoints, but they can't actually affect the time that it takes for that music to unfold. The free music is the sort of atmospheric environmental music that plays, or the things that are happening when the audience member is moving through the world or progressing from one narrative space to another. The music that kind of just accompanies you through the world. And then we have user-directed sections where the user is actively, or the audience member is actively making choices. So they are interacting with something in the world, and the world is responding orally. And this combination of these 3 things makes for a very elaborate sort of composition process where Brian has to lay all of these things out very carefully so that the whole experience feels very seamless and like you are in complete control as the audience member going through it. So the way that we talk about dynamic music in the next slide, Brian's got a very helpful graph to show you. But as soon as a user makes a choice in these dynamic music sections, it affects the direction and the content of the music. So this means that when Brian is building the score, he builds actually a layered orchestration and a layered atmosphere. So depending on what people do, they might trigger different layers of an orchestral score. So much like a conductor might cue an oboe and cue a flute, you are in some ways cueing your different orchestral instruments from your orchestra. And actually, for time, I'm just going to skip ahead to this graphic that Brian created. So I'm going to show you an excerpt from the headset so that you can see what it's actually like to play just the little opening sequence of the game. But this diagram kind of shows you how Brian has to think about laying out this dynamic orchestration and layering all of these elements. When you get into the opening scene, you are able to make a choice, which is to breathe life into the world by using your right hand, or to take life away, make things go to sleep by using your left hand. And if you decide to use your right hand, what happens is you will trigger these 3 upper string layers. And if you choose to use your left hand, you will start triggering these 3 lower harmonies. And what Brian has used this green line for is to show that there's a base layer of orchestration. There's a base layer of Orpheus singing, which is what we use to direct the user's attention to Orpheus. And then there's the elements that you interact with, these upper strings and these lower harmonies and flourishes. This is impossible to describe, so I will show you the video, and I hope that you'll be able to try it out one day too. But here's what it looks like and sounds like.
Welcome to the mortal world. In this place, we are prophecy. We are fate. We balance the forces of life and death. Under our right hand, nature awakens. Under our left hand, nature sleeps. Such is our right. We are incarnations of destiny, and we have come here for a reason. Listen, that is Orpheus, searching for their love Eurydice, who sleeps in the willow grove, under our watchful eye. We must follow Orpheus. In this mortal realm, Orpheus holds the power of a god, Eurydice, the force of a nymph. Together they could move mountains, roil the sea, upset the balance of destiny, a power that belongs only to the fates. Go, follow Orpheus. We must keep them apart.
So that was an early prototype from November, and we are presently finishing up. So it's funny to see it. Actually, there's a lot that has changed, a lot more detail that's going into the environment, and we're about to put out the prototype for industry testing in the next week. So we hope that some of you might be able to try it. If you're interested in knowing more, please feel free to be in touch with me, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. And thanks so much for letting me share this project with you.
Oh man, congratulations on all that. That is so incredible, Debbie. There's a couple questions in the chat, and I think this is something that generally comes up a lot, in that people allude to virtual reality, sort of like, is this what the future of opera is going to look like? Are we not going to, or, do we want to, is this going to take place of the theater? And it's like, to me personally, I see this is just another genre of opera, and any other type of like subset of music, and someone had asked about how, what the demographic of this, who is this, like what age are you targeting for something like this? And if I could answer real quick, just from my end, what I would think is that, this is something that can be experienced of all ages, but like, this is something that will last forever. So someone that is 8 right now could experience this and be completely dumbfounded by it, right? And be inspired by an operatic experience and grow up to be someone that sings on stage. And so it's like, right now we're just trying to, expand our horizons and using technology in order to create something new for other people to enjoy, and to meet us in the middle of what we all really like to experience, in theater, or if it's VR. And then if you want to discount virtual reality, then it's like, to not appreciate something like you've created is to just sort of push away all of this incredible hard work and beautiful visuals and just all the work that goes into this. And so it's just like an incredible thing. It's just something different to experience. I think it's all beautiful. I mean, you can explain what you want, but that's just how I see things.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you so much for all the kind comments in the chat. It's really, really heartwarming. Thank you so much. And yeah, all of those questions they're so great. And So the reason we wanted to kind of explore these new things was, as you said, Angel, it wasn't to say this is what opera is now, but rather, like I posed in the presentation, like what could opera look like if we used the same ideas to inspire the same kind of innovation that they came up with when they invented opera. And for us, it's a way of embracing all of our training, but also just sort of like engaging with all of these exciting tools and technologies that we have today that we do find inspiring and fun to work with. And in response to just our demographic, it was really interesting. We did a co-production with Tapestry Opera 2 Novembers ago, November pre-pandemic, and we had part of the headsets there, and we were streaming some of what was in the headset on screen, and we had just started, so it was really, really, really basic, but it was amazing because the audience that came were so many people that had never ever considered going to an opera ever in their lives, but they wanted to come to try this new thing out. And our target audience and the audience that we tend to engage is 28 to 44. So again, like these are just sort of a new kind of opera goer that we're trying to cultivate and foster as well. And this is just one way to do that. So yeah.
David has a question.
Yeah, mine's not so much a question, but it's sort of a response to the questions or the statements that were being made, that there just seems like this nervousness about, operas moving away from what we think of opera. And it's not the point of anything that we're doing in Opera Hack. It's actually, if the Florentine Camerata, if the group of people that got together to create opera had virtual tools, what would they have done? Because what they did was use technology of their day, which is creating, opera has always been at the forefront of technology, except for maybe the past, half of a century. But sets and costumes and lighting and sound, those all started in opera. And so this is just another set of tools. And we're talking about a virtual world, which most people haven't experienced, but you're not sitting in the virtual world looking at a static frame, you're moving through it. And so it is a real experience. It's pre-recorded in a way because that's what you're working in. But there is another thing that most people haven't experienced that we've not talked about, which is augmented reality, which I went to an exhibit in Rome a few summers ago when I was on holiday there. And it was an exhibit in an art installation that was an augmented reality experience. And the piece that you were seeing was real. And you saw the people through your headset still moving around, but as you moved from point to point, it became interactive. And so I can absolutely see that kind of augmented reality experience sitting inside of a theater with the singers on stage. And in Götterdämmerung, the theater catches on fire. I mean, that you could actually see that happening. So we don't need to be afraid of this somehow redefining opera. It's just going to enhance what we love about opera. And also, if you just get down to the basics of what opera really is, it's creating a drama or telling drama through the human voice. There's nothing different in that than what you've created here, which, by the way, is incredibly beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I think you've said it perfectly. Like it's actually the number one comment we hear or question we do hear is, well, is this taking away or is this changing opera? And we really do feel that we are living in the spirit of how opera was first invented and asking what it means today and creating experiences to live alongside those amazing experiences we have in our theaters as well, because we love those too.
Yep. I have a question. And what were like the costs of doing something like this? Like, I'm sure your dev team, I want to know more about your development team and stuff. Like how much can you just talk about that?
Yeah, that's the second question we get asked the most. It's hard for us to gauge right now because we actually started this before the pandemic. It was something we've been working on for a while, and this process of just figuring out what we were going to do and how we were going to do it took quite a long time. And then as we discovered when we got our team together, everything has to be done together. We can't send the librettist off to write the script and send the composer off to write the score and then do a workshop and then produce the opera. Every single single grueling detail has to be done in collaboration with the other people on the team. So our process has been pretty long right now. I would say that it's not necessarily a cheaper option to large scale opera, but the tools for creating virtual reality experiences and the education to educate people for coding and the ways to do these things are so quickly evolving, and they have even since we started working on this, that I think it's going to be one of those things that people can start doing much more easily. And even the motion capture that we did when we first did it a year and a half ago, we had to use a full motion capture studio. And just for half a day, it cost us, I can't remember, I probably shouldn't disclose, but it cost us quite a lot of money just for half a day of filming. We had to cram as much in as we could. And just in the past 2 months, we were able to buy our own motion capture system for the same price. And now we can do it all the time whenever we want. We can do it outside. We can do it in my bedroom. Like it's like a portable system now. So even in a year and a half, that whole system has changed so drastically too. So I wouldn't say it's a cheaper option, comparable, let's say.
I got a question. Will it be available in the Oculus store? Is there an expected release date?
Yeah, I hope so. We are so we're going to, the next phase is to do our audience testing, our industry testing, just to get the feedback from people, like what's really exciting about this, what is not exciting, how do we refine this? And like I said, it's very much a learning process for us as well. So once we get that feedback, then we'll be able to kind of clearly define like what our next steps are and what our how we're moving forward. But what we do have on the table right now is creating a hybrid performance. So a new opera that is live in person, but that has the headsets there as an installation and as an enhancement to the live performance. So as an audience member, you might come and see part of an opera and then go check out the virtual reality headset and have like part of the backstory of some of the characters, or have the myth kind of unroll and unravel in a different way, and then go back into the live experience and kind of be able to chat with your colleagues about that. So I hope in the next 2 years, you'll be seeing both of those things coming to life, the full headset version and this hybrid performance version as well.
Super cool. I have a question in that, like, what do you, bring it back to Opera Hack, what do you think this program could be, like, how do you think ORPHEUS VR could benefit from it? Are you thinking that there's any, what challenges are you working with right now in creating this that people could help to, move this type of art form forward?
Yeah, well, I think like with regards to Opera Hack, like one of the things that is so exciting is just, I had no idea what this would be when I started working on ORPHEUS VR. I didn't even know it would be an Orpheus story. Who knew? But it was this this bringing together of people from really different sectors, different lived experiences, different artistic backgrounds, to throw all of their creative excitement and energy at something and see what emerges from just that bringing together of ideas. And very much like we keep saying, the Florentine Camerata, this kind of like regular congregation of innovators, creatives coming together to say, like, what kind of stories do we want to tell? What's at our disposal right now? How are we going to tell these stories? And that's very much how ORPHEUS VR came to life. And so I think Opera Hack is the perfect sort of growing place for that kind of innovation as well.
Sure. And is there anything you're struggling with in production of what you're doing right now? Like
most things. Do you mean as a company or just with the ORPHEUS VR project?
Yeah, just with the ORPHEUS VR project.
Yeah, I think it is that there isn't really anything that exists like it right now. So we can't, go to the Reddit boards and figure out like, how do I problem solve? One of the things that we're working with is, I always compare it to the birth of the personal like laptop computer. I don't know if anyone's watched *Halt and Catch Fire*, but it feels very much like with these virtual realities or augmented realities, these giant, bulky, weird headsets that we have, that we're in this like Commodore computer phase where the hardware is just so clunky and it can't keep up with the ideas. And that's both frustrating but exciting because it means that the people working with these tools have to kind of stay on their toes and be finding these creative ways to get all of those ideas into these restraints or constraints. And so things like, we want there to be like so much detail in our world, but every single leaf that we place in the world takes up part of our basically our computing budget, and so it just slows things down. So we have to be very intentional about each leaf we place in the world. Yeah, things like that. And then of course the way that the musical interaction works is really challenging because we start with an idea, we build it, we try it out. It's never what we think it's going to be. People never respond to it the way we think they're going to. So the process requires audience collaboration as well. It's very much a dialogue between our ideas and the people who are going to experience them.
Sure. Yeah, the clunky headsets is probably something that a lot of people complain about when they put on it, when they're experiencing VR and stuff. It is a barrier of entry for sure.
It'll get better, but
yeah, absolutely. And I, but we're run out of time, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Indie Opera Hack. Main reason why I got into contact with Debi is because she reached out to me about, we met at the New Works Forum, right? When we gave a presentation in 2019, right before COVID. And Debi said, hey, I'm just started this Indie Opera Hack up in Canada. And, do you have any tips and stuff? And I was like, well, I got a few. You can take all the things that we learned and make it better. And then when we were recruiting our advisory panel, I was like, Debi, why don't you just jump on board? You've got some creative stuff going on. And so talk about the thing that you've got going on later this year.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Yeah, we will be running in an indie opera hackathon in Vancouver, and it's going to be modeled after the Opera Hack. But much like this project, the idea is to equip independent producers and smaller scale producers with kind of technological ideas, digital tools that can help them produce on the same levels or forge new innovative paths so that they can remain visible in our sector as well, and also kind of be working alongside the bigger, more traditional opera companies that we have. So we're trying to find ways to bring up the independent producers in our sector as well. So that's what we'll be working on, and it will be a 4-day hackathon. It won't be over a span. It will be really intense. 4 days. We'll give people a stipend to be there and just see what kinds of things they can come up with in that condensed amount of time.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. And that's later this year, right?
Yeah, sorry, that will take place. We run an annual festival called Indie Fest every year. So Indie Fest runs October 28th through November 6th, 2021. And Opera Hack will come at the end of that and close the festival with a big pitch session for the ideas that come out of that.
Cool. Yeah. And Tori is asking if it'll be remote. That's in person, correct?
No, it will be remote, actually,
Oh.
and a remote, and yes, to some international applicants as well. Yes. You can. I'll put our website. You can follow us, and I think Twitter, I believe. Yeah, please feel free to follow us, and we'll keep all of our announcements up on those platforms. And I before I sign off, I'll just quickly say thank you to the rest of my team that I didn't get to mention in the presentation, and that's namely Yuhan Guan, who is our developer and coder. She's just the mastermind behind everything that you see in there or experience, and this is a really kind of amazing person that we found to build this whole game for us. So just wanted to give a shout out to her too.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Debi. David, do you want to give any closing comments?
No, just thank you. And, it's very exciting to see how technology and the virtual world will just enhance what we love about opera, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a joy to be here, and thank you for all your thoughtful questions and all of your wonderful comments. Thank you so much.
Yep, and everyone that's a participant in Opera Hack that's involved here, feel free. Debi will have office hours on Discord. I'm sure she will. She's available via email and on Discord too. If you have any questions for her following this up. Next week we have one more Insight series For SD Opera, we've got a rescheduled one for Vita Sikun giving a presentation on visual storytelling the same time next week on Wednesday at 3 p.m. If anyone has any questions about Opera Hack or just general things, if you're not involved, send me an email. It's angel.mannion@stopera.com or .org, I'm sorry, or reach us at stopera.org/operahack. I think that's all we got today, folks. Anything else, David?
Nope.
Good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Debbie. Amazing work. And we'll see you next time.